Hey, good morning and happy Tuesday to everyone. Thank you for joining our session today. Today's session is broadening your customer engagement strategy, building and extending the relationship. And in light of the things happening in the world today, I think this is a really good topic to have a discussion around, certainly get us thinking about the concept of customer engagement outside the context of contact center. As you know, for the folks that have tuned in before, Inflow Communications, we're big believers on sharing stories and sharing what our customers and clients are doing in this space. And coming up next, if you follow us regularly, we do have a webinar later this week. It's on the 26th, which is Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific. And we're going to be taking the point of view of an IT administrator's view of work from home using unified communications tools. Communified, that's a new word. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining today. And by way of introduction, let me get this rolling. By way of introduction, I'm Chris Riccio, the Director of Contact Center and Advanced Applications here at Inflow Communications. I've been with Inflow 5 years now and so happy to be here. And with me this morning is Mike Doloff. Mike, if you'd like to introduce yourself and say hello.
Hey everyone. Yep, been at Inflow just a couple months, I think, ahead of Chris, so 5 years or so now too. And Chief Revenue Officer, so get to talk with a lot of our customers and get a sense of what's going on in their world around customer engagement. So be sharing some insights and experiences alongside Chris today.
Thanks, Mike, and I appreciate you joining. I know your schedule is equally busy, so taking 30 minutes out of your day is very much appreciated. By way of agenda, we're going to loosely cover these topics here. For those of you that have been with Inflow for quite some time or have been on our webinars previously, we spend a lot of focus on education and how to use products and industry standards. So we'll give you a quick overview of Inflow for the folks that don't know us. Today's topic will cover customer engagement, really thinking beyond your products and services. And I think this is really an opportunity for you to really expand what you think about customer engagement. And hopefully at the end of the session, you come with a list of items that you want to move forward with from a strategic point of view. We're going to talk about today's needs and how they're being redefined daily. Certainly, we're going to hit the topic, certainly hitting everyone's news feed these days to kind of give us a broader perspective. We're going to talk about proactive outreach as it pertains to customer engagement, helping you develop your strategy, or at least giving you some thought processes around thinking what your strategy could be. And I think this is an important item to cover because I think a lot of folks think of it in sort of like a sphere of certain things, but there's a lot more that you can expand beyond that. So we'll give you that. Developing your strategy with some common use cases, and then we'll end up with our Q&A. So if you have any questions, any thoughts, we're happy to take those. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Mike, who will give you sort of a brief intro of who is Inflow Communications.
Yep, thanks, Chris. So by really quick introduction, we focus in the technology space around unified communications and contact center. We almost hesitate, contact center, call center, customer experience, customer engagement. There's a lot of overlap and similarity, but they're different but related. So that's a space that we work in. We work across the company. We work with some of the leading technology players in this space. But I think our vantage point here is we get to work with a lot of different organizations of different shapes and sizes spread across the U.S., spread across the globe that are trying to innovate, trying to figure out and improve their customer engagement strategy. That's where we're helping. That's where we're sharing ideas, seeing what's working, what's not working, and what we're going to be sharing today. And sort of Inflow, we're in a fun spot because we get to talk about it, talk about the technology, live and breathe that side, but we're also a support and care organization. We're a contact center as well, so we get to practice every day and work on. So we're not sort of sitting in an ivory tower telling everybody what to do. We get to live it too and get to fumble our way through sometimes the messiness of how to figure out how to continually enhance your customer experience. But we do hang our hat on being as good as we can be and constantly striving to improve that. So that's a little bit about us. We don't want to spend too much time on it. We want to jump into this topic. So let's jump in. Chris, I'll pass it back to you, man.
Great. Thanks, Mike, and I appreciate the quick overview there. Yeah, so let's talk about customer engagement. And when you think about the concept of customer engagement, it's sort of like the word everyone's using these days, customer experience, customer engagement. But for folks, it seems somewhat cryptic. If I can make it simple, it's sort of moving beyond your products and services and how you sort of develop an approach around that. So when we talk about contact center, as Mike alluded to a moment ago, we all know the traditional contact center, and we've lived it for years. It's sort of intended to be the same thing. But now what's interesting is that contact contact center is sort of becoming a subset of the broader picture. And for me, having been in the industry for quite some time, it's fascinating to see, but also very exciting to see where things are going. The traditional contact center in the ACD was really about, managing your inbound customer interactions. As inquiries come in, typically for support or questions about orders or things of that nature, that was really what you were tasked with. And so you'd have agents and representatives grab those inquiries and handle your clients. And of course, a lot of folks really hang their hat on their SLAs, their service level agreements, and how quickly they can turn over calls. That really is changing these days. It's all about quality versus quantity. I don't think the persistence to flip a call, if you will, is there. It's more about how do I engage my client on a full spectrum and give them the whole brand experience of who you are. And that's sort of the differentiator these days. When we talk about the traditional contact center, we're talking about distributing calls and assisting customers with products and services, but it certainly is changing to a completely much broader dynamic. Now, everyone's heard the new catchphrase, and if you haven't, I'd be surprised. Over the last 3 years, it seems like every 3 to 5 years, a catchphrase catches on. And this is another one, CX, which is really customer experience. But the whole picture of customer experience is redefining how we make ourselves available to clients and customers. And that's the critical piece, how you make yourself available to customers. And it's being put under the umbrella of customer engagement, but it's being driven largely by technology. Customers have the options, and the options these days are all about mobility and how do I get quick, easy answers. And so the technologists are driving what customers want and demand, and now clients or businesses that offer products and services are being forced into rethinking that vision statement, because if you can't meet your customer at their level, they're going to go somewhere else. Convenience absolutely is redefining what customer engagement options you might offer. I'm a big user of customer engagement tools, and we'll talk about that in a moment, for one reason only, the convenience factor to me as a consumer. The traditional contact center at this point only addresses one aspect of the customer experience. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it's about 20% of the experience these days, maybe more, is really when do I have to actually reach out to a representative, engage with a contact center in the traditional sense. And usually for me, it's the last option. That's the thing I choose last. But what's critical is that when I choose that option, it better have an answer for me, and it better be a good experience. And that's not sort of like an antagonistic point of view. It's just the reality that if I've gone to the effort of using tools such as web access, looking at FAQs, or finding an online portal, when I finally can't figure something out and I need to reach out to a customer representative, I want that experience to be efficient, convenient, and hopefully the individual at the table working with me has the knowledge and experience to be able to take me from start to finish. So what's the big deal about customer engagement? I think it comes down to this one bold statement. You fought hard to win your customers. So how do you keep them? Keep them close by keeping them informed. I don't think there is too much information, but your tact and approach will define what the customer ultimately feels. But ultimately, your customer experience, what you're trying to control, at least have influence over, is your customer experience perceptions. Your client customers are going to have a perception about who you are and your brand based on their experience with you. And this is really what's driving the broader spectrum and need for a customer engagement strategy. It keeps your customers happy at some point, right? So when I think about the services that I engage with, the ones that keep me happiest are the ones that keep me informed. But if I think about the bigger picture, it's one less thing that I have to manage when the provider is actually giving me feeder details or information that keeps me up to speed on things in my personal life. And we'll talk about that when we talk about customer engagement. That's probably one of the biggest factors. I look for convenience. It sort of is an offshoot to-do list for me. I'm kept informed. It makes it convenient for me to do business with any brand. And I am actually selective about brands, and the ones that I usually choose are the ones that give me the best overall experience. And one of the things too, in terms of customer engagement that I look for is, are they educating me along the way as well? Is there information that I could benefit from during the process? And there certainly is. And today, I think it's no more critical today and quite obvious for us is the critical updates from local and national community events. And we're going to talk about those in a moment. But before we jump into this, Let's talk about some interesting data and facts. This is about communication response rates. And I looked hard and fast where I got this data from. I don't typically quote something without showing a reference. I could not find it. But 82% of customers read text messages within 5 minutes. So I'll challenge you, wherever you are, whatever you're doing during the day, whether you're in a business meeting, etc., when you get a text, what's your immediate response? You want to pick it up and find out what's going on or who is it from, right? So it's not surprisingly that 82% of customers read text messages within 5 minutes. 3 out of 4 calls go purposely unanswered, ignored. And I say purposely because if I get a phone call, and I don't recognize the caller ID or it doesn't pop up in my contacts, guess what? I'm not answering the call. Or if I do answer the call, I'm very guarded and suspicious. 1 in 4 emails is opened, which means that quite a few emails are just relegated to spam or just deleted because you can tell from the headers or the liners that it's just marketing and it's just you're being inundated with information. But those are some interesting facts to consider when you're developing your customer engagement strategy. You're probably likely going to have a mix of all of them. I don't think you can rely just on one technology. I think it's important to blend the technologies, but this I thought were some interesting facts that hopefully you'll take with you. So let's talk about today. Let's talk about what's redefining our need for persistent information. But it's about the ongoing communication, keeping you close. Now, we know top of mind, everyone is talking about COVID-19, the coronavirus, the pandemic has gone global, and the onslaught of information and the information that we need is really driving customer engagement at greater and deeper levels. When you think about customer awareness and customer engagement, think about community awareness, updates and more, local events. It doesn't have to be a healthcare issue or a health scare issue in this case. Think about what current events are reshaping our communication needs. Are there updates regarding services, updates regarding hours of operation? Are there incremental updates about product and product availability? And that's certainly what we're seeing now. I live in Palm Springs, and this is a largely retirement community. So there's a lot of information being circulated now about special operational hours amidst this pandemic that are dedicated to seniors who are an underserved population, but at-risk population, so they can get in and do their proper shopping. Lots of updates about hours of operation and profitability. So think about how that impacts your business and what your sphere is and what your services are. It's all about proactive customer relations as well. Customer events factor into that. And I get updates about birthdays. So when my birthday comes around, I do get an update from my provider, my healthcare provider. It's basically a happy birthday message, but it kind of keeps me close to them. I get education information, general knowledge information. Sometimes I get policy changes. So when you're thinking about today, what's redefining the customer engagement, it's not just about your client needing reaching out to you for service and things of that nature. It's what can you do proactively to notify clients of things that may be changing in your world that impact them. I think ultimately it comes down to communication is key to nurturing and sustaining the long-term relationship there. So let's talk about proactive reach and building and sustaining the relationship, what that might look like for you, and more importantly, some of the benefits of ongoing communication. For me personally, my experience is that I always feel connected. So I'm one of those folks or consumers that will register for any real-time communications. So I have all the apps for my credit cards, my bank, my healthcare, and other services that I opt in for the communication because I appreciate the communication. I think customers love convenience, and oftentimes customers appreciate knowledge. Anytime you can give customer insider information and tell them where things are moving, where they're headed, I think it's a game changer. Certainly that's not anything new to Inflow Communications. We've always been in the education business because we want to educate clients. The more we offer in terms of information, the more we're seen as a respected thought leader. And we win lots of clients that way, but we keep our current clients educated and close to what's happening with technology and industry. So when you consider your strategy, let's talk about strategy. And this is where, Mike, you might have lots of options. And we'll talk about some stories here about what communication approach matters. And I think the critical piece is what's important to your business. So I want to start off with some examples here. And when you talk about customer engagement, I would ask you to step back and take a 360-degree view of your business. what are the offshoots of your customer? Certainly, it's not just the product or the service. There's other things such as renewal, there's maintenance, there's education, there's product changes, there's policy changes. Here's a couple of examples. So healthcare, this is a fun one, and I've seen healthcare change dramatically over the last 5 years. My dentist and my primary care physician, I get constant updates. Certainly, I get appointment reminders. That's the easy one. I think appointment reminders have been happening for a while, whether it's through a phone call. Nowadays, it's more often I get an appointment reminder via text message. If I don't respond to the text message, then I get a phone call, which is a nice strategy. So when you think about the strategy, think about it as a dual strategy. If this doesn't happen, then what's my next logical step? I do get annual reminders. I was surprised. My healthcare provider sent me an internal message. Now, my healthcare provider is pretty forward-thinking. They have an online portal. So I got a message in my online portal back in September that I was due for my annual flu shot. I also got a text reminder because I didn't respond to that message. That is just a basic reminder. But when I've gone through procedures, I've gotten a notification that my blood test results are in, my x-ray results are in, that sort of thing. So having that ability to constantly communicate prompts me to not have to worry about it, but I also get the ongoing communication. And I get clinical updates too of things that may have changed with hours, or that maybe they've moved their blood draw center from downtown to a different facility. Finance and banking, this is a big one.
Hey, Chris, real quick story
Sure,
on the healthcare front, just in light of COVID-19, the last week or two I've gotten from two different providers that our family works with. I've gotten SMS messages and email messages regarding telehealth abilities and capabilities for them to provide. So again, proactive, right? I didn't have a request out there, but because I'm in their system of record, I'm a patient or someone in my family is, they've got contact information. They're pushing that information out to me to let me know, hey, if you need help with something right now, we've got a different channel that we can connect you with. So good example, right? It's from their side, they're pushing out information to me. I'm receiving it because they're using not just they're not having somebody manually dial out. They're pushing it out in other digital channels, and it's proactive, right? It's saving me from having to go to their website to look something up. I can click the link in their SMS and go there to find more details out or to book my appointment. But now I know they have this new service they didn't have before. I'm also not calling in and asking. So it's I think one of those good things too, where that customer engagement is reducing questions and burden on the call center portion of their business as well. So anyway, just a couple of recent examples I had that I wanted to share around the telehealth side. I've gotten some updates on that front.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, we always think about contact center. One of the number one issue with contact center is staffing and be able to handle demand, and almost anything can tip the scale. And you just mentioned that some of the proactive outreach actually can alleviate some of the stress on the contact center, which I think is a great advantage, because a lot of times if a communication comes out, let's say via email, what happens? People all of a sudden will start asking questions and consider, let me call the contact center. This might impact me. Or if a push notification is a little bit different. Anyways, yeah, great points there. Finance and banking, this is another one that I opt in for everything. Billing notifications, I get now. Finance is interesting because they mix and blend things up. I usually get an email that my statement is ready, but I do get text messages when a payment posts, or if there's a policy change or an interest rate change. Those are things that I see regularly. But I also get other notifications, such as if a charge went through in Chicago, but I live in Palm Springs, it may be flagged as suspect. I was actually en route to Fresno driving. This was about a month and a half ago. And while I was driving, I got a call from my bank. Apparently some transactions were attempted in Chicago, which is why I gave that example, for telco services or telephone services, and it was flagged. So they sent me an alert. I was driving, so I couldn't read it, but then they called me to verify if it was a charge, and it wasn't. So interesting things are happening in that regard as well. So it's not just about the basic services, it's an extended service behind the umbrella of finance and banking. It happened to do with my credit cards, but I think ultimately, Chris, when it comes down, go ahead, Mike.
Well, to chime in on the banking finance side too, one that we haven't mentioned this by name, but I think that there's part of your customer engagement is potentially an app, right? We've talked about this, but it's a website, it's your app, it's all these different, it's SMS, it's all these different channels and points that are sort of working in harmony. An example of the banking side was I was traveling, and I actually shared this out on LinkedIn. It's a great example of really positive customer experience. Was I was traveling and I launched my app I was in Dallas, Texas, right? Normally I'm in Portland, Oregon, and it said, "Hey, it looks like you're traveling. Do you need to request can't remember the exact banking term for it, but basically like let us know that you're traveling so we can flag your account accordingly, so you don't have any issues, using your card." And that was pushed out to my app as I launched it, as kind of a banner. And I think, again, right, like that, what did that do? Well, that was a nice touch, and it didn't require any human element to it. It also prevented me from potentially getting my card declined somewhere and then having to call in and have put a burden basically on the call center. So I think it's just, it's little things like that. And I think the challenging part of customer engagement is it's this big, broader window and stitching things together. The exciting part is it's like there's pretty much anything you can do in here, right? It's looking at, I didn't touch on in healthcare, but it's like, part of the customer experience clearly is in the office too, and how do they get checked in, and what's the waiting room like? Like it's a whole different thought process. It's thinking of all these things as one. So anyways, I know I'm rambling on some examples, but I think on the banking finance, just that, the app, the push notifications, the banners, those are really important things that are in the context of the contact center and customer engagement. They're really important. Those are parts of the puzzle for sure.
Yeah, I religiously rely upon my notifications for my apps, for my credit cards, my credit bureaus as well. So all of that and the above. And I was actually one of those folks who traveled abroad and my card was declined, and I did call in, and it was because the system noticed that something was taking place out of my normal area. And I think ultimately for me is that having that persistent communication, it helps build loyalty. It's really about which brands. Now, I have a silly story about loyalty. It's going to sound funny, but it actually, it's a really good model. Built basically sustaining the relationship, connects you with your customers, you as the business with your clients. You get to build that relationship, provides and the piece that I like as well is the did you know scenario. Hey, did you know we just did this? Hey, there's this new information. Even if it's helpful hints, hey, we've noticed you've been to the website. Sometimes I get notifications based on my activity on the website when I log into a portal, which is interesting. So that's the broader picture is that it builds loyalty. If I know that my actions has a counteraction, they actually are watching and they support me in another way, I'm more inclined to stay there. So let's talk about some common use cases, but I want to go back to the story here. Here's my silly story. So I use the Domino's app. As silly as it sounds, I'll buy pizza, but I'll tell you that app is worth its weight in gold because I, number one, save my order, my common orders. So now to place a new order, it's literally 30 seconds. Boom, boom, boom. Yes. Now, the interesting thing is I get an update for every process of the way. The store has received your order. Your food's in the oven. Hey, John has picked up your order. Mike is on his way to deliver. And then after I've paid for it and received my pizza and whatever else I've ordered, like 15 minutes in, I get a message, a text message that says, nom, nom, nom. It's kind of fun. It says, nom, nom, nom. We hope you're enjoying your dinner. Thank you for working with us, or ever what the verbiage is. But it's a start to finish, and even afterwards, they continued the movement. That app, I've probably bought more pizza in the last 2 minutes than I probably bought in the last 2 years because the app makes it super convenient. So let's talk about some common use cases. I know that's a fun use case, but there are certainly a plethora of stories. Let's talk about some common use cases. We've talked easily in healthcare and medical and dental, appointment reminders. That's an easy one. Your app connects to a process, which then sends out the notification, either phone call or text. So this is the most common, or at least the most prevalent one that I've seen out there for impending events. There's also the process of account changes and statuses. And yes, I ordered through Domino's, but I got a status through the entire transaction. That is so helpful for me because I don't have to wonder, where's my pizza? Where's my food? I already know what the process is. And in the event that something's running late, this actually happened. An order took a longer than usual. They sent me a text saying it was longer than usual. Now, everyone knows about upsell opportunities. I think most people are afraid that if they opt in, they're going to be inundated with marketing material to sell, to buy. These are just some examples where you can use a CRM to push information out. Now, what I will say is, as you develop your strategy, I think it's healthy to have a blend. If you're just marketing, I'm that user who's going to say, all I ever get from you is sales, and you want to sell me something. After a while, I just turn it off and say, yeah, I'm not interested, because you're not providing me anything other than you're trying to push a sale on me. But you can use it for that as well. I always say kind of blend it. Customer updates and notifications. We just talked about that. Give me a status change. And it could be a service industry. It doesn't have to be pizza. It could be something else. Last year, Mike, I bought a new HVAC unit, and I had it installed in my attic space. Not only did they tell me the technician was on his way, they told me who the technician was. And when the technician got stuck in traffic, he sent a message. It was just super helpful to know what was happening, because when you're doing a large purchase like that, if that impacts your home and I had to work around my schedule, that was really helpful. And then after my transaction was complete, customer service sent me a note saying, we're here to help you if you need anything. And they've been really great. So having the ability to send a text and get an email from every level was really helpful during that process.
Hey, Chris, just to share an example on that too, just a smaller example, but pre-COVID-19, in January, my son was not feeling well, and we were trying to figure out, it was a Sunday, so we were like, I think we need to take him in and get him checked out. So we were trying to figure out urgent care. So again, who's available, how long are the wait times? Some of that stuff is visible, some of it wasn't. Some you had to call, some you could kind of get a sense. So right there, the sort of customer engagement was initiated. So we landed on one that was fairly close by, looked like they had availability, actually could book quickly a slot versus just dropping in. So I'm like, okay, I can go in there and be there in 20 minutes. And we've got a slot. We got in there. We're actually a few minutes ahead of schedule, and they said, no problem. We'll get you in right now. Great process. When we finished up, as we're driving home, I got an SMS around, how can you basically rate the experience? And it was great. And I got home, I sat on my couch, and I popped up the text. I replied back with a number, basically an NPS score. So again, if it had asked me to log in or do some complex survey, I wasn't going to do it. But I was responded to that, and it said, hey, thanks so much. Anything that stood out to you? So I commented back, here's my thought. And then the actual follow-up from that too was, this is so appreciated. Hey, if you want, you can actually do a Google review as well, if you choose to do so. And so I was like, yeah, actually I will. I think that was great. I want people to know that I was really pleased with that overall experience. So they really stitched together and linked these things really nicely. They got good feedback. They got some data. It was a helpful experience. So that whole customer engagement went from me figuring out how to book and get in there to them effectively, obviously delivered a good experience in the middle, the key part, but then also they got me to be sort of an advocate for them on the Google reviews, right? And it was very easy, very simple for me. And so anyways, that was a recent example top of mind on that for the notifications, updates, and sort of linking some of that together.
Yeah, and the key thing you just said, it was very easy for you to do. That's one of the key things. You just mentioned too that you were taking your son in for urgent care. One of the things too is I have a dental appointment on March 31st, and with the whole COVID thing, they've actually sent out push notifications that, hey, we know you're concerned. We're taking every precaution as mandated by local authorities, blah, blah, blah. Just assuaging my anxieties, because, people can get carried away with their thought processes. Especially around times like we're experiencing now. So the other process is, orders. I give you the Domino's piece. This is sort of the same thing. Amazon, I get updates with my order. Alexa, I'm connected to Alexa. I'm a smart geek home. So I just ask Alexa, where's my order, that sort of thing. But the convenience factor is huge. We talked a little bit about finance and banking. Mike talked about, his bank capabilities and being able to reach out proactively. But I also gave the story about how I was en route to Fresno and the bank called me because they saw suspicious charges. So it's sort of like a built-in mechanism for fraud. They texted me and then called me because I didn't respond to the text. So that was actually pretty proactive, because the fact that I didn't respond to the text they were really trying to track this down before they let the charge go through. So that was really helpful. And then lastly, this is sort of where we are today, you know, local and community events and national updates. I'm getting regular updates from my dental care, as well as my vet. I actually have a vet appointment for my dogs on the 31st, and they're also changing their process. Now they've notified me that we're not allowed as a patient inside the facility. We have to wait in our car. And someone took a picture. They actually come out in masks and take your dog from you and then deliver the dog to you. So think about local community events. And it doesn't have to be the pandemic that we're experiencing now. Once this is all said and done, it could be things about, hey, the marathon is down the street. Come stop in for early morning coffee, or, you know, think about, get creative in your thought processes. There's so many things that impact your local community from a business point of view. You have plenty of opportunity to offer you know, some sort of ongoing and proactive customer engagement. So let's talk about some summary and kind of go into some QA if there are any. I realize we're running a couple minutes late here, but when it comes to customer engagement, it's really about enhancing the relationship, taking a broader spectrum and looking at the 360 view of the things that might impact your products and services and what information you can extend to your customers. And it's extending the relationship beyond the products and services. Obviously, you work hard to sell a product, develop a product, or you have a special service, but there's more to it than that. There's so many things that impact the customer experience. Develop a strategy with a 360-degree view. Hopefully the stories that Mike has shared and sort of the vantage point that we've talked about, including today's issues, gives you a better perspective on how you can develop a strategy around your particular expertise, whether it's finance, healthcare, product, or tech support. There's so many ways that you can create and develop a customer engagement strategy. And as Mike said, it was super easy. Make it convenient, and if you can, make it personal. I like that I get updates that Sam is on his way to deliver my pizza. I mean, it's the little things like that, but also my service providers. So if I have someone work on equipment in my home, I know the technician's name and who will be en route, so I can greet them at door by name. And it also is a level of security when you think of it that way. The company said Jose is showing up, I better see a Jose at the door, and if I need to ask for identity, I can. So with all that said, are there any questions that we can answer? Any thought? Anyone that has provoked anyone? Nothing there, Luis? All right. Well, thank you. Thanks so much for everyone for joining today. We understand that things are very hectic these days. Getting 30 minutes out of your busy day is hard to set aside, so we certainly appreciate it. If you have questions or would like to contact us and talk about what sort of products give you the ability to extend your customer engagement, you can call our toll-free number here or send an email to contact@inflowcommunications.com. We're always happy to educate and share information. You can also check out our knowledge base for more resources and videos. And lastly, thank you for your time today. Mike, thanks for being here and being part of the discussion and sharing your stories. And Luis, thank you for moderating today as well. And we hope that everyone has a safe week. Wash your hands, stay home, be safe.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everyone.